Have you ever noticed that on certain websites or on certain applications, there's often this little box that you have to tick to change the default option so that if you don't tick this box, this is what you're going to get. But if you do, you're going to get something different. Well, what is that default option will have a big influence on people's choice in the end. And this is what we're going to look into in this video. So if ever you've looked at Richard Thaler's nudge book, a lot of it consists of default options, of how we can nudge people in the right direction. And the classic example is how the default option of either organ donations or no organ donations on your license, driver's license, can have a big impact on whether you decide to give your organs or not. So when you have a default option, naturally a lot of people gravitate towards that because to just sign the agreement and not really pay attention is the most easy thing to do. They don't really have to make a conscious decision. Do I want to opt out or do I want to opt in to this program? So removing this decision leads to situations where people that are trying to get through the process rapidly will naturally gravitate towards the default option. So part of it is laziness and just absence of time. We're all living busy lives. The second part about it is this idea that the default option is often seen as what most people are doing. So if it's about giving organs, you're thinking, well, if that is the default option, I'm guessing most of my neighbors, most of my friends are opting into this program. I'm not going to be the one that check marks this and says, no, I'm not willing to give my organs if I die in a car crash. So that gives you the impression that people are behaving in a certain way, so you will likely behave like them as well. So the default option has that feeling of making you feel as though other people are also sticking with the default option because you have to make a conscious decision to leave that default option. And last but not least, I could attach the idea of default options to regret theory to a certain extent, because if you're just signing off that document or you just don't do anything, you're kind of sticking to a certain option, which is the option that's kind of imposed on you. But when you choose to act differently, you've made the decision. And in the end, if that decision was a wrong decision, then you only have yourself but to blame. Even though not ticking it off and using the default option was also your decision, it just doesn't feel as much though it was you. It feels more like this is what was imposed on me. So I'll give you guys an example. Let's say you start a class with myself or someone else, and there's two different grading schemes available to you. There's either a series of assignments in the final exam worth a half-half, 50-50, or the final exam worth 100%. And I give you guys the default option, one of the two. So maybe the first option is your default option. If you decide to say, nope, from the start of class, I want 100% final. And then the final exam rolls up and you don't do as well as you would have done if you would have took the other option. You're going to blame yourself for that procedure. You're going to blame yourself for that decision that you've made that is not as good. But I could have also started with the default option that you have 100% final. And in the end, if you would have just took that default option, you wouldn't have necessarily felt as bad because you're like, I should have made the other decision, but I was just lazy that day. I was just overwhelmed with other things. So you're not as hard on yourself. So default options kind of guide people to behave in a certain way as well. People like status quo. They like not thinking things through too much. So if you want people to behave in a certain way, offer them that option from the start. So if you're in a restaurant and you'd like your customers to be more healthy, or you run a cafeteria, well, instead of having a sandwich that comes with fries, but you can actually change those fries to salad, have that same sandwich come with a salad, but they can change to fries. At the end of the day, they have the same exact choice. But if you have to make a conscious decision to switch to fries, you might think, well, do I really want to? Like, I'm trying to be healthy these days. Whereas when it's just the default, you're thinking, it's fine. Like I'll put away salads for another day. So think about how everything could be set up, how the default option could be set up, and what influence that could have on your decisions. There's a lot of applications out there. Talked about organ donations, talked about classes, talked about eating at the restaurant, and you could think of many other options out there. And this is just one of the tools used to nudging people in the direction of what you want, what you think is better for them. So if you're someone running the government and you want more organ donations, well, how can you make that happen? If you're someone who wants people to eat more healthily, how can we make those default options? So a lot of those options there could be from a business perspective, but they'll also be from a government standpoint on how they can influence people to behave in a way that is more socially optimal. Hope you enjoyed this video. I'll catch you soon. If you found this video interesting, please consider subscribing or joining my class where I guide you to apply and expand on the information found in these videos to real-life examples. Have a good day.